Good afternoon. Now, I know y'all are eating, so I don't expect you all to just drop your forks all of a sudden, but I do expect you to open your ears and open your hearts as these young people work through some of the themes in this book. Before I get into the panel, I just want to let you know who's on the panel. We have 5 flyweights randomly selected from amongst the cohort of you. They were selected because at some point during the day, I saw a glimmer of confidence, a little assistance they gave somebody else, a little boldness, but something that just instructed me that their presence on here would be influential and it will be felt. Now, the heavyweights that we have on the panel are a former CBMA fellow, 2017, 2018, Rashad Stanton. And the heavier heavyweight is Chief Spokesman for the Baltimore Police Department, Mr. T.J. Smith. Now, I really don't want to do too much talking after this. So I'm going to give you a couple of the general themes that came out of the book overall, and then we're going to go into some of the thoughts, the provoking questions that the panel that selected the book thought would be valuable, before even entering the book, just things to meditate on. And then Rashad, he was actually on the panel, and he'll flesh it out even further. The general themes from the book are search for identity, independence, coming of age, culture, the importance and the role of family, forgiveness, trust, hope, determination, acceptance, prejudice, racism, compassion, empathy, peace, and nonviolence. The book is a compilation of shorter stories that speaks to each and every one of these. And I guarantee you, young men, once you've had an opportunity to read the book, you'll identify with one of those characters in their individual spaces and find through their context something that you can do for yourself. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to the panel. The only prompt that I'm going to give them to start off is that the prerequisite to the book is to think about certain topic heads: stressors, intergenerational trauma, race-based trauma, post-traumatic slave syndrome, and civil disobedience. We're going to start with stressors. What I'm going to ask the panel to do is to introduce themselves the first go around, and when that mic comes back around, we're going to go right in. We're going to talk about stressors in their lives, or how they can recognize stressors in their lives.
I'm up first, huh? All right. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here, and I'm telling you, young men, you are in a great place, and y'all are the future leaders in our city. Whether you know it or not, you've been anointed to be the future leaders in our city, because you could be anywhere else, but y'all are here. And that's a big deal. And people are going to be looking to you. Yeah, they deserve a round of applause for that. People are going to be looking to you guys to lead them in the right direction, whether you choose to or not, but your actions out in the streets are going to be the difference between somebody going down the wrong path or going down the right path. And I guarantee it, because you guys are choosing to be here. And as we get into talking about stressors, the peer pressure is something that you're going to go through at this age, especially more than you probably will in your life, but we as adults deal with it. But anyway, I'm T.J. Smith. I'm the chief spokesman for the Baltimore Police Department, and I talk way too much. Not talking about today, even though he called me a heavyweight. I'm working out, trying to. But I talk way too much about bad stuff. When I leave here today, I have to go and address the media because of some of the violence that we've seen. We've seen some unprecedented violence the last couple of weeks. But that's what I'm known for in Baltimore, talking about the bad stuff. I wish I wasn't known for that, but that's unfortunately what we've been grappling with the last several years here in our city. The police department's not going to change it. The city government's not going to change it. All of us, you will. Okay? I'm a native of Baltimore, went to Baltimore City Public Schools, graduated from Baltimore County Public School, but I went to Polian City, and I had the opportunity to come back to Baltimore in this role And a lot of people ask me why. It's because I wanted to be here. And I said when I first got here, I'm not just a spokesperson, I'm a community advocate. So I want what's best for our city, because I have a 6-year-old son that look like most of y'all, all right? But thank y'all for having me.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Malik Graves. Excuse the ponytails. It's a bad hair day for me. But I might look like I'm 12 years old, but I'm actually older. I'm 22 years old. Nice to see everybody here today. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to helping out as much as possible and getting this thing done.
What's up? Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Khalil Brown. And I know, like he mentioned, I may look young also, but I'm 23 years old. And I'm looking forward to being as much help as I can. And yeah.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Thank you all for being here, and I'm honored to be and share the space with you all, young kings, as well. Rashad Staten, I am a CBMA fellow for 2017-2018, and I proudly represented it on behalf of the Baltimore cohort with Brother Richard Rowe, Mateo Blue, and Gerald Laveau. And that was a life-changing experience for myself. When I was introduced to CBMA, Sean Dove specifically, it was a walking example of black excellence personified and exemplified in physical form. And I always told him, continue to live in your existence, because you show young men like me and others that we can continue to go beyond the narratives or the portrayals or perceptions of who we are. Right now, I'm a Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program Fellow for Johns Hopkins. And it's amazing how everything complements itself and how you can take the educational realms from 2 different programs and it all plays a part in your development and your outlook on life. And professionally, I'm a youth engagement specialist for Baltimore City Schools. So these young men that I share the space with are all my bosses, because I work for them to make sure that they know the value in themselves. So thank you all for this.
Hello, my name is Cameron, and I'm 14. I'm not like them. I'm very young. But see, that's the thing. I think it's important for me to be here because all of us in this room, we're a family as a whole. And some people didn't grow up with family, and they turned out to be like drug dealers or something very bad. So it's always important for us as a whole to, like, support each other to do the better thing. That's how I feel.
All right. Hi, I'm Silas Smothers. I'm 15, and I'm looking forward to talking about the situations in the book because I feel like they relate to me as well as I feel like they would relate to everyone else in the room.
Hi, my name is Jalen. I'm 9 years old. This is my first day here, and I am looking forward to having fun.
Now, in the spirit of just being adaptable and flexible, I know I said we wanted to talk about stressors, but something Cameron said just sparked in me the second sub-question. What do you all know about intergenerational trauma?
When I hear that, I think of trauma that we as blacks been through for all generations, and it might not stop. It's going to come in different forms, but it's something that we just continue to have to go through and strive in.
Intergenerational trauma, I think it's a story that's too well known and a normality for us as black and brown people across the globe. I know, as I said, on the selection committee, the OneBook Selection Committee, a collaborative partnership with TRowe Price, Baltimore City, Enoch Pratt Library, and Baltimore Cease Fire, that the intentionality in selecting this book amongst other great narratives and stories was which book could share a story and a perspective of exactly that, intergenerational trauma, but how do we go around being solution-oriented and being community-focused on how we approach this to keep ourself and our sanity intact. In this book, when you all have a chance to actually read this young man, the main character, deals with this intergenerational trauma, but how he goes around healing himself through how self-healing is he connected to ancestral spirits. And that ancestral spirit was Martin Luther King. So he learned to express himself through journaling to Martin Luther King, asking, what will Martin do? And that's how you got the title of the book, Dear Martin, because he writes to Martin Luther King, how were you able to, in your time of triumph, of your time of oppression, physical oppression, systemic oppression, governmental oppression, how were you able to keep your head high? And how were you able to still see the mountaintop? And that's what we still have to be able to articulate to our young men that lives on the avenue, that lives in Cherry Hill, that lives in Sandtown, Winchester, that lives in Perkins Home. How are you able to still keep your head high every day to go and be educated, to be liberated through the minds and know that you are beyond the 4-block radius that can often take us down, right? And this book right here spoke to that. It was an exact replica of what was on these young people's timelines. This generation here is tapped into an umbilical cord and an iPhone charger. And if we're not cognitive of the millennial generation and what they're accessible with through social media, we will not be able to tap into their dualities of life, right? And this book showed that narrative of what this young man had to do as far as peer and mentorship to his friends' actions caused intergenerational trauma in him. And then he had an educator that saw that went through his own life experience. And we all had, I can promise you we wouldn't all be here right now if we didn't have at least that one educator that saw something in us and poured it back in. And they were stern and they were receptive to who we were and they watched us develop. And this book accepts that. And it exemplifies that. So thank you.
All right, so when I think about intergenerational trauma, I think about discrimination of African Americans because over the years, we wasn't equal, and I feel as though we are human. We all can do the same thing. So in order to get out of like poverty and things, you gotta have education. That's why it's always important to stay in school. And if you don't have an education, you don't really know what is right. Like, I know many people that like smoke weed and do things like that, and I always try to challenge myself to not do them things because I know what they can do to you. And yeah.
Good job, bro.
So we look at our city here, and it's one of the most segregated cities in America still. And we look at areas of our city that have been underinvested in for many, many years. And we talk about that trauma that many of us have been through, however it is, whether it's our parents that found themselves addicted to drugs or jail or dead or what have you. We've been disproportionately affected by it. And we can go back and just talk about 3.5 years ago where we had riots in our city and so much was supposed to change. There's a lot of national news stories on, West Baltimore, Sandtown, Winchester being a food desert and, schools and all. And then 3.5 years later, y'all can chime in if y'all want and tell me what's changed. Is it a new supermarket there? Are there better opportunities for transportation in the area? Or is it something that we just talked to, which now we have children who were born at that time who next year are going to be 4 years old, year after that 5 years old, and they're going to come up in that same environment of trauma that we blamed some behaviors on. So until we wrinkle some of those things, it's going to take all of us, and you guys are going to be able to share your experiences, and it comes with age, where you realize, I posted a picture on my Facebook page one Throwback Thursday, and it was me and my two homeboys, and we were probably about you guys' age, and we were mean mugging. And then I posted a picture of us underneath of that from that same time frame. It was now, It was us three again, and we all had big smiles on our faces because we had a lot to smile about from where we were. But I will say, you know, the old saying, you are what you eat. It's who you hang out with, it's who you lead, it's who you guide, to try to make sure we influence that, because our different experiences, our different trauma will make us all better men, better people. And again, you guys are beacons of light. I know it, because y'all be leaders to pull that young man up that's having a hard time, who doesn't realize you've been through some of the same trauma that unfortunately we have to fix. Because this city, we can go back 30 years. Some of these communities have looked the same way for 30 years, and some of them look even worse today, which is a sad testament to where we are.
I want to ask a question to the flyweights. Who was in my confidence session this morning? When we talked about the recognition of a behavior and triggers and how you know you're experiencing something, I want you to think about that in the context of how trauma may manifest in your lives and how you may recognize that you may be experiencing a traumatic situation or experiencing a trigger based on trauma that was behind you and ways not to pull it to your future. The journals that we had, that's where you can capture those ideas. You don't confront it unless it's captured, and you can reflect on it. Just a thought. Okay. Another term that they want us to define, what do you all consider race-based trauma? What do you think about when you hear that term? What do you think about when you hear the term race in general in the context of your own flesh?
First off, I just want to start by saying, I remember my brother had told me this one day, race really isn't a thing. Like, it's not something that we should be labeling against people, because we're all the same, we're people. And when I think about race-based trauma, I think about trauma that certain races go through. Like, if we go to a predominantly white setting, we might get called the N-word or certain things that we're not supposed to get called, but it's going to happen because of our race, the color of our skin.
I think we unfortunately see it too much every day, and it doesn't matter. You know, I work for a police department. That doesn't matter. I was stopped for shoplifting as an adult police officer and treated like, you know, a young black kid, basically. And until I told him, if you put your hands on me again, you know, something's going to happen to you. But the fact that these prejudgments still exist today is part of the problem that we're seeing with the fact that this race-based stuff still exists. And it's unfortunate because we know we're better than that. We know we're not second-class citizens. It's funny because I think even with me and the role I'm in, one compliment that people who are non-black often give me is that I'm well-spoken and articulate. And I said, did you expect me to be anything else as a spokesperson? You know, LeBron James is a great basketball player. You shouldn't be surprised because he's in the NBA. But I think people don't recognize our abilities, and they're still shocked in some formats that we are in positions or levels that we are. But we have to keep defying that stereotype and those myths and rebel against those low expectations society has against us.
Well, when I think of race-based trauma, like Phil, you said, it continues. It's every day, especially for me. I done been around different races and they didn't say little comments or about my hair or about my color. Oh, you shouldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, but honestly, I feel like anybody that's racist in today's time it's a joke. Like, I've been called N-words recently, and did I let that affect me? No, because I know who I am as a person, even with my color. So today with the racism thing, it's just getting old. We are people, and we thriving, and we driving more than anything nowadays. So I just want to say to everybody, from oldest to youngest, don't let it bother you, because we here now, right? We here now. This is what we supposed to be doing. This is us. So don't mind the racism. Don't mind the N-words. Don't mind the nappy head jokes, because it's old now. We beyond that. We way past that. Like I said, if anybody's still racist in 2018, you're a joke. Point blank, period.
This brother right here summed it up. I would say it's amazing how I learned to deal with race-based trauma comes through my learned passion for literature. It wasn't until I got to college and I attended a historically black college that I started to see books and authors and illustrators that resembled myself in the physical form and the skin tone and the dialect that they was translating on these words. And I'm like, wow, they're published. They're #1 sellers and things of that sort. And I immediately threw away my tennis shoes and stopped playing video games. And 7 years later, I have 300 books in my personal library. But that's through turning the pages and reading history and reading that a lot of what we deal with today is, like he said, is old. So if we don't have to recreate a blueprint. It's the fact that we just have to be self-educated to go back and learn from those that circumvented these problems that is going to probably outlive us and have outdated us. One in particular, one of my favorite writers is James Baldwin. And I'm at a point where I try to practice, other people may practice Zen, I practice the James Baldwin effect of how can I learn the language, the narrative of others and turn that completely upside down and make them feel uncomfortable in my presence of black excellence, right? And it all comes with knowing who you are, but understanding the world that we live in. He says the black man is an immovable pillar, and anytime we decide to change the world itself, the universe itself will go into an advancement. The universe itself will switch because we are that immovable pillar, we are that fixed star. And when it deals with race-based trauma, he says to live black in America is to be in constant rage. And I sat at Tuesday at the strategic planning day, and it struck me after listening to some of the stories, was to live in black America is to be constantly enraged, which is true. But to thrive as black in America is to channel that rage through empathy, compassion, and heartfelt devotion to change the moral fibers of America herself. And I wrote this note to my son, and I dialed it, and I said, sincerely, your bastard son. Because that's who we are to America. And unless we changed America herself to understand that she has tried to tarnish who we are, but she cannot live without us, that we cannot, America itself will not thrive unless black excellence is alive. And once we realize that that lie been a joke at all, we can then laugh at America and tell them the joke was on you. All right? So I thank you for that. But race-based trauma doesn't define us, because if we're asset-based individuals, we understand that our struggle brings resilience, that it's nothing else that the world can put in front of us that we can't get through. All right? So that's how I see race-based trauma. It doesn't exist because I don't allow it to.
When we look to the author, Nic Stone, the character in the book was able to channel the spirit of Martin and write letters as a means of accessing that additional strength and that additional resilience. I would love for my panelists to look back to someone that they could channel, an ancestor. If you had to choose someone to anchor your resilience with, who would it be? And what character from that person can you hold on to in the present moment?
My grandfather, born and raised here in Baltimore, he worked at the main post office across the street from police headquarters, actually, for 30 plus years. Family man, took care of family, marched with Martin Luther King, and defied the odds. It's still pictures in my grandmother's house. He passed away in 1989. it'd be great to be able to talk to him. But to think of that short time frame that I had to interact with him, the impact that he had on me and my family to this day. But it's still pictures of him in the house where they're on Pennsylvania Avenue dressed up from head to toe, top hat to shoes. And I remember when I was younger, where were y'all going? We were just hanging out. And they carried themselves in a different way because they didn't allow even the times to tell them that they weren't. They were going to be who they were going to be, regardless and despite the circumstances. And one thing that he always taught myself and my cousins was educated Negro is still a very dangerous individual. And, you know, we all took that to heart. And I actually credit him with my career as a spokesperson because every day after school, in elementary school, my cousin and I went to the same elementary school, and we'd walk home, and he had a police scanner up and the news on, and we would the news radio on, because at that time I think the news only came on at like 6 o'clock in the evening. But he would set up his recording thing and a microphone, and we would have to recap our day in school. We would have to do a weather report, do a news report, and talk about current events. And this is when I'm 7, 8, 9 years old. So that's the resilience and something that a person instilled in my life, and I appreciate that.
And for this question, I will ask that all the panelists feed a response.
Well, when I think of this topic, I think of my great-grandmother, who is now 103 years old. She's actually living to this day. And when I say she got energy, it's not a room you can run to that she ain't gonna come behind you. Right? But her husband, before he passed years ago, he was a minister. And I feel like to this day, I'm still attached to his energy. Like when I talk, people say I have a very powerful voice. I'm very intellectual. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I get that from him. But with my great-grandmother, I have her strength. Because even at 103 or 90 years old, she'll still go out in that field and work on her flowers. She'll still take the trash out. And I'll be sitting there, Granny, what you doing? Calm down, sit down. No, what I'm about to sit down for? So it's like, I feel like I'm a part of her. And she used to sit me down at the table and make me read the Bible for hours. And you know, as a kid, you like, man, I gotta do this again. But yeah, people can teach you things in life that you unknowingly take with you. You can be in any setting, in any place, or whatever the case may be, and some things that people will taught you, it just come out in your actions. You don't even have to be recited. It just come out in your actions and then show it, pull out your skin. You know what I'm saying?
I would say my stepfather, Andre Mitchell, because that's my father figure. He's the one that taught me how to be a man, how to carry myself, and you know, he used to like make me do Black History reports when I was in like the 8th grade, and I used to hate it. I really used to hate it because I never seen the use in it until I got a little older. But he used to make me and my sister like sit down for at least 3 hours and research and write like 4 or 5 page essays on different, what's the word I'm looking for? Like different Black ancestors. Like my favorite one was Nat Turner, you know, and like, so like that's something I carry with me now to this day, because like he taught me like what it means to really be Black and be powerful, and you know what I mean, to really use my mind and stop being so ignorant and to think before I reacted to everything. And because that was always my biggest thing, was always being angry and always flying off the hinges before I thought. So he really taught me how to use my mind and how to think about a lot of things. So, I mean, that's one thing I will always carry with me, because he's the one that taught me that knowledge was power.
two ancestors that connected with me that allowed me to survive my own mental space was around the age of 15 or 16. I was going to Dunbar High School. I was raised to be an athlete. I was supposed to be the next Muggsy Bogues to come out of East Baltimore. Half of my team actually got scouted and played professional sports, but I didn't get a growth spurt. So I'm here in front of you all now as a youth engagement specialist. So what got me was I was born in Lexington Terrace Projects and raised in Perkins Homes. So 20 years of my life was born in public housing. And I would have family members that were incarcerated, and they would look out in their courtyard and see the exact same thing I would see in my courtyard. A concrete jungle of intergenerational curses and replicas of us trying to survive a life that wasn't purposeful for us to find out who we were as a person. So I used to go home and I would have sleepless nights because I wanted something beyond my 4-block radius. And I used to think I was weird. And I used to think it was nobody else that could understand my story until I watched a documentary on Michael Jackson. And the same gift that Michael Jackson had was the same curse that he died with. Michael Jackson, they would say that he died and he overdosed and he taking sleeping pills. That's because he created symphonies in his dreams. His greatest songs was created that tormented him at night because he could not go to sleep, because his artistry would come out of the spiritual mindset while he was trying to rest. So his art never allowed him to rest. And my critical thinking never allowed me to rest because I always wanted to break that glass ceiling that everything inflicted me and my community. And then I read a book on Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King was at 16 years old, and at this time, he's about to go into college. And Martin Luther King felt lonesome amongst his own peers because no one else around him had this childhood upbringing, and he was gifted and ordained to be this next leader. And this pressure that this young man had to deal with was something uncommon to the rest of his peers, so he had nobody to console into. And I realized, well, this same thing that's keeping me up at night is going to be the same thing that allowed me to grow into my greatness. And after I read that book of Martin Luther King at that exact time when I was that age, I was like, you know what? I don't want to play basketball no more. I'm going to try to figure out what I got to do to change the world. I tried to race and beat President Barack Obama to be the first black president, but I lost. So those are my two favorite ancestors because they saved my life as a young black boy growing up in public housing. How do you get beyond that? And my favorite living ancestor is Jay-Z because his lyrics was the blueprint to how you can get to success. I mean, every album I grew with Jay-Z, right? To now it's black excellence and creating a legacy for my family just like he's doing for his. So that's what mine are.
Two people that really influenced me, like, to be a better me is my mother and my cousin TRowe. It's like every day they talk to me about how to be a better me as a black person, and like how they teach me things that I really didn't know. Like, I mean, I can't really explain right now, but like when I was younger, I used to go to speech therapy, and like after I got out of school, after doing speech therapy, I went to this other speech therapy thing. And then after I got out of that and I soon came home, my mother also helped me with my speech. Like hours. I used to get tired of it. But like my mother always influenced me that education was the key to success. Because when I was younger, I'm not even going to lie to you, I did not like school at all. I didn't do nothing. And I used to look at my sister like, 'cause she was bringing home honor roll and everything. She really made me feel bad. I was hating, no lie. But like after 6th grade, that really changed because I wanted to be something more than like just like someone on the street in life. Like that's something I always wanted. I wanted to do engineering because I wanted to help people. That was always something I wanted to do. Like I look at, carpentry, something like that. I look at all these houses and I just think it can't be no way all these abandoned houses and no one fixing them up so that homeless people can live in. And like my mother, when I get home, she teach me like things about like spiritual things, religious things, and then also like Things that you should learn in school that we don't. And like also my cousin TRowe, she also do it like every day we come from school. And when we going to school, no lie, I be getting tired of it. Like I just be tired and I just be sitting there listening like, okay. But then I was like, later on in life, I realized how much I needed it. And I feel like it really helped me.
Someone I feel like really influenced me is my grandfather. He influenced me to play football, and I can say that's the reason why I do. And one trait I would never ever forget about him, I think I carry in myself. No matter what, he's going to get what he wants. Like if he wants something, he's going to strive to get it. No matter how he's going to get it, he's going to get it. And I feel like that's something that a trait that everyone should have, because if you want something in life, obviously you deserve it, and you should be able to have what you deserve.
Mine is my mother, because you only get one of those, and she taught me don't let words get to your head, and if you let them, you're gonna get broken down.
And you know, it's only right that Jalen was the last speaker on the panel, because this morning in the confidence session, he was one of the first speakers. Amen. And one of the youngest in the room. So, you know, the book tackles all of these subjects and more, and it goes even deeper. And more so than just reading it, it's intended to make you reflect and have conversations with the youth around you, wherever and whenever you have the opportunity. I want to thank my panel, TJ, Rashad. And since the books are in your bags, read them. Later on this year, Baltimore City is going to be rolling out a robust curriculum that talks about the book amongst our 7th and 8th graders. But just because the conversation starts with them doesn't mean it has to end there. We'll be having the conversation more with CBMA, and as you read it, I would love for you to filter your thoughts and your reflections back in so that we could push it back out to our national network. Let's make this happen. Thank you.